Hi guys, welcome back. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. Today I'm going to be talking about Extraction. Now Extraction did come out earlier this year, but if you haven't seen it yet, it stars Chris Hemsworth. He plays Tyler Rake, a mercenary who gets called to do a job in India. He has to go save Ovi, who is a crime lord's son who was kidnapped by a rival crime lord. And after he's got Ovi in his hands, they get double-crossed, and the big bulk of the movie is him trying to get Ovi out of the city safely and back home. It essentially is him fighting against two enemies. There's the rival crime lord, who has a whole city up in arms looking for him, and then the guy who double-crossed Tyler and his team, who's also trying to get the kid. They eventually join up, their goal, to get the kid out safely. And that's the movie in a nutshell, which I'm going to preface this with saying, if you like the classic action movie where there's a lot of shooting, hand fights, car chases, but not a whole lot of story, then you'll probably really, really like this movie. It is well filmed. There's no denying that. The special effects are great. Overall, the acting's pretty good. So if that is your thing, if that's what you enjoy, I would recommend you see it because it is good. Now, my opinion, which is not the end-all be-all, it is not what everyone should think, but my idea is it was kind of boring. I watched it twice, and the first time I got so bored halfway through, I just stopped for a bit and went and made dinner, played on my phone, and then came back to it. Second time around, I did watch it all in one sitting, and it was slightly better, but overall I found it kind of boring, and that is because for me, it lacked story. The fight scenes were fine. They were very well executed. Though I will say, I felt that some of them were very kind of unrealistic. Now, I'm not a fighter. I'm not a mercenary. I don't know how much one human body can withstand, but I feel like they really pushed the limits on what Tyler Rake could handle, because he gets quite a few injuries, quite a few beatings, while simultaneously taking on soldier after soldier after soldier after soldier, and he's getting shot, he gets stabbed, and he just keeps going, and the bad guys just keep coming in each of these individual scenes. Like this, I'm not talking throughout the whole movie. I mean, this will all happen in a single scene where there's 20 guys coming after him, and he somehow manages to withstand that and keep going for the rest of the movie. And for me, that doesn't seem 100% plausible, but it is an action movie, so you take it, it is what it is. It's entertaining to watch, but that's about where the entertainment ends for me, because I need to be able to feel connected to characters, and I don't feel connected to a single one of these, and that is because there is not a very well thought out backstory planned. One of the things that drives me crazy about movies is when they start with the ending at the beginning. And that is exactly what this movie did. It shows you a good 30-45 seconds of what the ending is going to be like at the beginning. And for me, I automatically don't feel connected to, Chris Hemsworth's character, because I'm already given the teaser of the kid, and the way they do it, it's quite obvious that it's a memory, a sad one. And you see that he's not in great shape. So once immediately that's going to be part of the ending, I kind of lose interest, because there's nothing else that fleshes him out. We don't get why he's a we can assume that he's a mercenary because of what happened with the kid. However, he does say in there that, why he's kind of regretful is that he had gone on tour to Afghanistan, and he had chosen to go on that tour because he couldn't handle that his kid was dying. But we don't know when he left the military. We don't know why he joined up with the mercenaries. We don't know why this gang of mercenaries is even together, and by golly, do they fight like crazy to get him out of the city. It doesn't play to me, we don't get enough about who this leader of the mercenary is, why she cares so much about Tyler, why they would expend this much energy and money and men, because a lot of them get killed, to rescue this one man who's kind of going against the job anyways, because once they're double-crossed, the whole point is he's supposed to just stop trying to save this kid. He could have easily just left the kid and left. But he doesn't, and we don't get any of that backstory. Now, Ovi's character, I get why they wrote him the way they did. He's a very flat character, which is, at least he's not annoying. I gotta give them mad props for not writing an annoying teenager. He kind of just takes things as they go. Now, mind you, I get that he was raised in an environment where he knew that any given day he could be kidnapped. He was kidnapped because he flaunted the rules and it didn't tell people where he was going. But at the same time, he's almost too flat that you kind of don't care what happens to him. Like, you're supposed to not want him to get injured, you don't want him to get killed, but you're not really given a reason why, aside from the fact that he's a teenager. And obviously doesn't deserve to be kidnapped and killed because his father's a terrible human being. I get that. But it just wasn't written in a way that actually felt like emotional, which is an action movie, and I'm going to say that time and time again. I get that, but I do feel like you can put some emotion in story and fleshed out characters in an action movie. It's been done before, and I don't feel like you need as much fighting as this movie has. I feel like it's very gratuitous at certain points, and I am all for a good fight scene, mind you, which I'm going to talk about later because I'm going to compare this to the Old Guard, and the Old Guard had some very well done fight scenes. About 35 minutes, Tyler has Ovi. He just has to get him out of the city. There's still an hour and a half left of this movie. And out of that hour and a half, a good, hour and 10 minutes of it, I reckon, about an hour and 10 minutes of it, is just fighting. And there's just little holes. Like, one of the characters is played by David Harbour. He ends up, rescuing Tyler and the kid from, they're in hiding, and he comes and he saves them for a bit. But you don't get explained, you know that they know each other. And it's known that he's definitely been part of the mercenary team. You don't know why he's out. You don't know why he couldn't be the one to save the kid. They never give you any of those details, and you don't get, why does he owe Tyler his life? There's none of that backstory. And so it just feels weird. You're like, okay, they just needed someone to come save him. We just needed this little moment because we need to have a conversation bit, an emotional moment in this movie. But it just feels kind of meh. I will say one of the things I really did enjoy about this movie was the bad guy, Amir Asif. He is what a bad guy is supposed to be. He's unforgiving. He's unforgiving. He's very vicious, but in a manipulative way. He doesn't actually do anything that dirties his own hands. He's got the entire city wrapped around his finger. He gives them just enough, but plagues them with enough fear that they know that whatever little he gives them in terms of money, food, security, they're not going to go against him because they know that the punishment of that is death, and not a pleasant one. And part of this is he also has child soldiers, essentially. He has a little child army of these kids ranging from 8, 9 years old to teenagers who are willing to fight for him because they want what he has. He symbolizes to them what they could achieve. He's rich, he's attractive, he's got the power, all of the power. He's got the cops on his side. Everyone is willing to pretty much fight for him. And that is just amazing how they did that. I will say that because I find a lot of times in action movies, which I am about to talk about the Old Guard, a lot of times their villains are kind of cheesy or just a little lame or just extremely cliche. And he is a cliche crime lord. He ticks off every box a crime lord should, but they do it in a way that works. And it works for this environment, it works for this movie. And this is where I'm going to kind of segue to how I feel it compared to The Old Guard, which is the most recent action film that came out on Netflix that stars Charlize Theron. Now, I will say, for all the things that I liked about The Old Guard, I hated the villain. I thought Merrick was as cheesy and poorly portrayed as they possibly could have come up with. He's just this lame rich dude who has he wishes he had the kind of control that Amir had. You know, he's got all the money and he owns a company, but he doesn't actually have that feeling of power. He's just this annoying early 30s, late 20s guy with bad fashion who has a sadistic side, but no, you just don't really buy it. So I will say that is one thing that Extraction did way better than what the Old Guard did, was they created a bad guy that truly you could, be like, yes, I would be scared of that man. Whereas with Merrick, it's like, no, I'm not really. And they both had kind of a pseudo bad guy. They both had guys who had crisis of conscience. In Extraction, you've got Saju, who is the guard / kind of head of household that is taking control, in control of what's going on with Ovi's life and the whole finances and stuff of his dad's business while his dad's in jail. And he is like an ex-Special Forces person. He's an ex-Special Forces officer. He makes a hard decision to kind of go against the mercenaries because he doesn't have the money, and neither does Ovi's dad because their finances have been frozen, to actually pay the mercenaries. But if he doesn't get someone to do the initial work of rescuing Ovi, his family will die. And they do a good job of portraying that, his goal is just to get Ovi out alive and keep his family safe. And they show that very well. In the Old Guard, you've got Copley, who is portrayed as someone who suffered a great loss. He had to watch his wife die from ALS. He had to watch his wife die slowly in front of him, essentially. And he wants to believe that Merrick is going to bring about the change that could help in that for, other people so they don't have to go through what he did. But then he realizes how far Merrick's willing to go, and he starts to go, oh, I'm not actually okay with this. And then he flips the opposite way, where he kind of joins up with helping the mercenaries, the good guys, and goes against the bad guy. And they both have those characters, and I think they're both pretty well done. I definitely like Saju better than I liked Copley, but overall, they both play their parts as being like that mid-conscientious type person. But what I truly loved about the Old Guard that the Extraction was significantly lacking was story. Was a very well fleshed out characters, fleshed out storyline, backstory, etc. And that's what the Old Guard shows, that action movies can have emotion, detailed stories and backstories, and still have some pretty intense fight scenes. Because the Old Guard, you got a group of mercenaries, but you know why they're together. You get bits of each of their backstories and how they kind of relate to each other. You've got one that's a couple, and two that are essentially like the best. It sounds so cheesy. They're basically like the best of friends. They've known each other for centuries. And you know why they stick together and why they do what they do. Whereas in Extraction, we don't get any of that. And that is where I think it falls the flattest, because it focuses so heavily on the fighting. And the Old Guard has some pretty good fighting, but most of it doesn't take place till like the last 45 minutes of the movie. There's like a couple little fight scenes at the beginning and a good chunk of just story building throughout the middle. And that is what I feel like Extraction could have used, with a little less fighting, a little more story. I think even if you were to set it in just like a 24-hour period of trying to save this kid, I think they could have done a little bit more. But it is a good movie. I definitely prefer the Old Guard, but that is my own personal opinion. You are allowed to feel how you feel, and tell me how you feel. Let me know down below in the comments. Like, have you watched them both? Which one did you like? Why? Why not? Are there other action movies that you would like to talk about that you felt are kind of in the same vein? And what, just comment down below. Let me know. If you like this, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the little notification bell, and as always, have a wonderful and safe day.